Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be covering the uh, thoracic region and the blood flow or the arteries that are within. So some of it will be a little bit of a review and some of it will kind of go over a little bit more in some other areas, but let's just dive right in. First thing I really wanted to show you is just being able to see how everything's fitting inside of that rib cage. Right? We have that diaphragm running along those ribs right there. You can see the heart sitting within. Up here at the top, we can see the trachea and the esophagus right up in there. We rotate it. I put in the right lung, right? And this lung has three different lobes, unlike the left, right? Because the left only has two lobes. So looking at it from here, everything has its own little place and it's pretty nice and tucked in there, right? So looking at it from underneath, here's that diaphragm inside that inferior thoracic outlet we can see. And looking at it right here, if we had these costal cartilages, we would see that costal margin sitting right here. So looking at the diaphragm from the inferior side, we can see the hiatuses that are held within. We have that aortic hiatus sitting right here, that esophageal hiatus. We even have that caval hiatus. In this picture, it is so much easier to see this central tendon of the diaphragm. And sitting right on top, that's where we have the heart. And we have that pericardium and the central tendon coming down off of the heart and inserting itself on top of this. Uh, let's go ahead and remove this stuff that we've seen right here. I'm going to go ahead and remove the sternum. So here we have that heart with that pericardium on it. So it's that fibrous pericardium. And then underneath that, we have that parietal layer of the serous pericardium, if you remember. And then it is the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. And here's our heart. We can see the lung right here, and we've got our pulmonary arteries coming out of the pulmonary trunk, coming into the lung. Let's go ahead and remove this. All right. I'm going to remove the clavicles as well, just to help see this a little bit easier. So we have our ascending aorta coming up, and we can see this hole right here where the coronary artery is coming out. Ascending aorta, the aortic arch. Now, let's go over the blood flow that's coming out of this aortic arch. If we look at the right side, right, so let's rotate this. If this is you looking at the screen right now, come through that vertebrae sitting right here, first thing that we're going to run to is that esophagus. Then it's going to be to the trachea. But on the right side, we have this brachiocephalic trunk coming out. We only have one brachiocephalic artery, and it bifurcates into two different arteries. We have the common carotid, and we have the subclavian. Subclavian, it's having several different uh, branches coming off. The new one that we want to cover right now, it's coming down into the thoracic cavity, and you can see it's coming close to those ribs on the anterior side right here. That's going to be your internal thoracic artery. get rid of that. And we have one on both sides. Keep in mind that this is coming out of the subclavian on both sides. We also have this thyrocervical trunk from the subclavian. From there, we're getting some blood flow that comes over to the trachea. That's the whole reason why I have this big branch right here. But there's some of those tracheal branches for the blood flow for the trachea. We also have the vertebral artery, which we covered. If we look at the left side, we have the common carotid coming out on its own, with the subclavian coming out on its own. And subclavian on the left side has that internal thoracic, this thyrocervical trunk. It'll have branches coming over into the trachea as well, has that vertebral artery. All right. Another thing that I should probably show you right here is on this heart. Get rid of some of these ribs. We have that pulmonary trunk, pulmonary artery, and then we have this ligamentum arteriosum. This is where that blood flow for a fetus would come through. At that point, though, it was ductus arteriosus, but in an adult, this is ligamentum arteriosum. All right. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Well, we'll just keep it. It'll be too much to take it all out. Now we can start to see, if we look inside the thoracic cavity, we've got all of these arteries running down in the ribs. I mean, I keep rotating. Hopefully I'm not making you sick. I apologize. But we have all of these arteries coming out of the aorta. These are what are called your posterior intercostal arteries, providing blood through here. We have branches off the aorta feeding the esophagus, our esophageal branches, which you can see right there. And I think we've got everything that we wanted to cover for this video. So hopefully that helps you see it just a little bit better. Only thing I can think of that we should probably look at in this video are some of the muscles that fit inside the ribs right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in. All right, so just really quickly putting these in here, I wanted to show you these external, internal muscles of the thorax and the abdomen. So starting with the abdomen, just to give you an overview really quick, we can see that the muscle fibers are running at an angle this way, if you can see this cursor. If I like to match my hands, so if I put all my fingers close together and I match that angle with my hands, I can see that if I were to try and put my hands in my pockets following these, it's going to go into the pocket, which means that they're external. And that statement is true for both the abdomen and for the ribs. You can see that these kind of follow that same angle. If we get rid of this external oblique muscle, we then run into a muscle where the fibers are now running opposite. They're running up. So if I match my hands again with the fibers, my hands are not going to fit inside my pockets that way. And that's going to be your internal oblique muscle of the abdomen. As well, in the abdomen, you have a muscle where the fibers are running horizontal, and that's going to be your transversus abdominis muscle. Get rid of that. As for the ribs, we see these external intercostal muscles. Again, if I'm looking at the fibers, they're going to be able to fit inside my pockets. If I get rid of them, now you see the fibers changed, right? They're now looking like the external obliques on the other side. If we match those fibers with that right hand on this right side of the body, it's not going to fit inside our pockets. So that's the internal intercostal muscles. So now looking inside that thoracic cavity, you can see why there's all this blood flow running inside the rib cage, right? Because it's got to supply blood to all of these muscles where they're helping you breathe, helping that these lungs to expand and contract to bring in that blood flow. I also put in that costal cartilage, so if we follow the edge of this, here's our costal margin, which is a pretty good landmark to help you to see the um, linea semilunaris, which we'll talk about in a later video. Or if you've watched the textbook videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it helps, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, I just want to give credit where credit is due. These are the books and the resources I used for the videos. So first we have Essentials of Human Anatomy by Dr. Kurt Walker. We then have Essential Clinical Anatomy by Keith L. Moore and M.R. Auger and Arthur F. Daly. I also used Structure and Function of the Human Body by Mark Nilsson and Jamie Garbett. The last book I have is The Concise Book of Trigger Points by Simon Neil Asher. And then I used the app called Complete Anatomy. As you've seen from the videos, it's amazing. If you can afford it, I suggest it. It's such a useful tool when learning this stuff. So that's it. Have a good day.